Welcome to the Crazy Wisdom Podcast. I've got Dax Raad here, and he is the co-founder of OpenCode, which I've been using along with all the other command line interfaces to learn how to vibe code. So we're just going to do something a little bit different here, which is that I'm going to send out there. Yes, I'm going to send this link to Dax on Twitter, and then so he can retweet it. Okay. So if you go ahead and retweet it, then everybody will
Yep.
be able to see. Yeah, so interesting where we are in time right now. I love the fact that you are competitive with all the proprietary ones, which are all closed source, and you guys are open source. Can you talk more about what it's like to build an open source command line interface for an agent?
Yeah. I mean, there's two sides. There's the open source side, and there's the actual thing we're building.
Oh,
Um, the open source side, we've been doing this for a while. We've been pretty much every line of code I've written since like 2021 has been open source. So we've been building open source stuff for quite some time. And the projects we like to pick are we try to look for opportunities where there's a problem and the problem has a long tail, which means there's like a wide range of things that the solution needs to integrate with. So we looked at the coding agent space, and that long tail manifests as all the different models, all the different providers,
yeah.
et cetera. So that's where open source is really great, because as a small team, you're not really going to be able to cover something that wide, just as the core team. But open source helps you tap into the larger user base and have them polish the experience in some of the places that you don't have time to focus on. Also, it's not just time. It's like the parts of the product that are good are the parts that the people that work on it use themselves. I'm not someone that like a lot of people, their company has an Azure account that has access to an LLM and they're mandated to use that. I am never going to be in that situation. I'm never going to be able to create a polished experience for that, but someone in the community will. So that's what's been fun about doing this work for OpenCode is there's just so many different environments that this thing can work in, and having one representative from the community to represent that environment and push it forward. So that's we look for opportunities like that, because otherwise, you can make any product open source. That's fine. But when there is this long tail thing, that's when open source is actually an advantage.
Yeah, super interesting. And what have you learned from the command line interface? So you actually tweeted yesterday about asking like how do non-technical people deal with this crazy stuff of like getting in the doom loop. And I started learning to program in 2015. I absolutely hated it. I basically joined a monastery in Mexico to try to basically focus on and do meditation retreats so I could focus on this thing that I just totally hated with the dev operations and getting stuck, and it was just
Yeah.
like constant nightmare. What I needed at that time was somebody who I could call on at any moment to tell me what the hell was going on when Git doesn't work or all these different things. And
Yeah.
they say go to Stack Overflow, and I did that, but it wasn't really helpful. You'd have to go into these you'd have to build an intuition for how to get to the right thing. Then 2022 showed up. ChatGPT 3.5 showed up, and all of a sudden it was like, okay, this is it. This is the thing that can help me learn how to code. And I was right about that. But then I didn't even get it that it would also be able to code very soon. And then another 1 to 2 years down the line, then these command line interfaces show up, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's here now. Now I got something that will code for me. And it's so interesting because I built strategies for how to get out of that doom loop, and I've done all these other things. But it's all prompting based. So what did you learn from building that command line interface? Why the command line interface? Why did Claude go into that, and why did everyone else then follow them in that?
Yeah, I think this continues to be a mystery for a lot of people, because anytime we show something we implemented in OpenCode, I always get replies like, "Why are you guys doing this? Like, just make it a GUI, or like
Yeah,
you're taking
interesting.
this too far."
Yeah.
People get upset at it, and I think from just objectively, it's stupid to get upset at someone else building a feature for something you may not even like. Why do
Yeah.
you care?
Yeah.
But I think where that's coming from is confusion around what is going on here. So you will see there's even big accounts that are even in the space post very confusing things, like their takes on the command line. They'll be like, oh, people just use it because it feels cool, or like it's going backwards, or like, you know, whatever. So the point here is people don't get it, right? They're saying all that. At the same time, Claude Code continues to grow a crazy amount. OpenCode is the fastest growing product I've ever worked on. So whenever you see like a incongruence here where everyone's like, this is wrong, but then it's still like getting adoption, there's usually some kind of like interesting secret there. And I think the secret is actually kind of boring. It's just that the command line is universal. And I think a lot of engineers really struggle to wrap their heads around how big the world is when it comes to software engineering. You know, for a lot of people, they're just like, oh yeah, just use cursor and get like this, you know, GUI experience. That's whatever. But there's like a whole segment of the world that's like, they can't just install cursor on their laptop. That's like something that has to be approved. Or there's people that just like their IDE and that's just something that they want to continue to use. Or there's people that find cursor itself like really overwhelming. Like they don't want to mix the AI and the editing part together. They want to keep it separate. So I think what Claude Code came in when it kind of got traction, what it showed was when you make something easy to adopt, it's very easy to incrementally try out Claude Code. You don't have to switch your editor. You don't have to do anything. Even installing it, even on like a lockdown enterprise laptop, you can probably get that working because it's just installed through npm. Very easy to just go try out what this AI like agentic workflow feels like. And ease of adoption is like the thing that drives growth. If it's easy to try out, if it's easy to get to the aha moment, your product will grow. And terminal based, you know, whatever, they tend to be very easy to install, and almost the first time you try it, you probably have a good experience, or you're like, whoa, I get it, or like, whoa, this is cool. And that's why they continue to grow. So I don't think that every single person in the world is going to be using AI through this form factor, but it is a very flexible form factor that works for interactive things like this. It can run in your CI. You can wrap it with an SDK and like call it programmatically. Super flexible. And that's kind of what drives everything. And for us, we're like, well, if we're going to do a CLI, we're not going to do a shitty CLI. We're going to try really, really hard on it. So we're about to launch OpenCode 1.0, which is like ground up, built on our own TUI framework, really pushing what's possible in the terminal.
A TUI framework?
Yeah. So if you look at something like Claude Code or most of the other ones, they are, I mean, terminology is always like bastardized at the end of the day, but they are terminal UIs, but they're very simple in that they just print out to your terminal buffer. There's some advantages to that. Like it still is just kind of basic text that your terminal can scroll up and down. But you can see that as they get more complicated, the UX of it is like really struggling. Like they have to like kind of overload all this functionality into like this really limited way of
text,
you know, interacting. Yeah, and like they can't do mouse stuff. They can't like print stuff on top of stuff they've already printed. Like they can't do like a pop-up dialog, for example. They can't do like an alert window. So for us, we like went all the way down to the lowest level of the terminal, which lets you build arguably like almost everything you would build in like in a graphical interface.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so we have mouse support. We even have like hover states, like and then in 1.0 that you can like hover over elements and they'll like light up and stuff, and you can click them and like a dialog will pop up. And so it's much more like a rich graphical user interface type thing, but it still has more constraints, which in my opinion just force it to be better. Like we can't like overload the UI with stuff, because at the end of the day it's still just text. All the text has to be the same size. There's still some constraints like that, but yeah, I think we're trying to take it as far as we can.
So the command line interface does actually lead the AI to. The way I've been telling it is that the reason why everyone's going into command line interfaces is it because it constrains the LLM somehow. Is that accurate? Is there a constraining going on of the LLM that doesn't exist inside of a chatbot, that doesn't exist inside of Cursor or an IDE? Like, is that going on?
I don't think so. I think they're effectively the exact same thing. And if you look at, so we're not sticking to just CLI. We're building a desktop app now. We're going to expand on our editor extensions as well.
Cool.
They all are just calling into the same underlying thing. So they're all going to work exactly the same. You prompt one in one UI versus another UI, you get the exact same results. It's really just the UI, like the end user interface, that's constrained.
And this is why I love it. Is I've been doing this podcast with my dad called Stewart Squared. He was a PC journalist in the 1980s and the 1990s.
Oh, nice.
So he saw the rise of the PC industry. And basically, as soon as AI came out, there's an immediate sort of connection with the internet, because it is almost like creating a whole new internet, like a private internet. Every time we have a chatbot, we like go into the whole internet and get it back with us. And so I love the fact that everything is going back to the metal in terms of the command line interface. Like it's all constraining back to what they were using in the 1980s and the 1990s in Unix and all these different things. Is it Unix? Are you guys at that? You said at that base level, are you playing around with Unix at that level to get into this command line interface?
I mean, we're cross-platform, so if you're on Linux, it uses your Linux shell. If you're on Mac, same thing. If you're on Windows, it uses PowerShell. We got to improve our Windows support, but we're not like tied to a specific operating system or anything.
Okay, and so what do you think about the future where we're headed in terms of the graphical user interfaces, and just like interfaces with LLMs? Because it feels like a huge amount of the interface is actually going to be voice generated. Just having a conversation with this, a lot of people are already using it where they just speak to their computer, they speak out prompts, and all of a sudden things are created. Like, what are all the where are we going in terms of sci-fi for this?
Yeah, so this is kind of why we're excited about the desktop app. Like the terminal version of OpenCode, we have to be very clear with what it's for and who it's for and what it should do. So that's pretty much settled at this point. Like we know what to expect out of the terminal version of OpenCode. The desktop version of it, it's a lot less settled. This is where we're exploring some new ideas. So one thing that we kind of just came across this today, we're exploring not doing so much of a chat type UI, where right now pretty much every one of these tools, it's like a infinitely scrolling chat with all your messages.
Interesting.
Which makes sense because you are talking to this thing, but at the same time, if you look at how you use it, you're actually using it message by message. Like when you send a message, then you let it do its thing, then you want to review the stuff. Then you like send a new message, it does its thing, then you want to review what it did. So we're exploring different ways to show that. That's not like, it might still kind of look like a chat interface, but is there a better way that we can describe this? The voice thing is also really interesting because another huge part of this workflow is we're really trying to nail the prompt review type workflow. So every time you prompt, you get a diff of everything that's changed and you want to review it. You say, this is good, this is bad, whatever. So it's nice to be able to, like, with your mouse on the desktop app, like select portions of code, whatever. It's annoying to have to type out what you mean. So if you're like, oh, what you did here, I don't like, do it this way instead. That's a great place for voice. So the desktop app will explore integrating voice input a lot more. Because I think reviewing code using your voice is actually really nice. It's kind of like exactly how you would tell someone sitting next to you if you're reviewing their code. For us, a lot of this stuff, we're realizing it's not new. It's just we're a lot more exposed to it. Like technically, code reviewing someone's work has always been a thing. And the challenges have always been there. Like someone makes a bunch of changes. You weren't there every step of the way. So you like don't exactly know what they've done. So you need to spend some time understanding what they've done. Then you need to give some amount of feedback back to them. They need to go make the changes and come back to you. Like that whole loop. You're just swapping in the person for an LLM. So people have complained about these tools for a long time, even before LLMs were a thing. Just like code review sucks. Like GitHub PR, there's like infinite complaints about GitHub's PR workflow. A bunch of companies started that have tried to improve this. So I think we're just going to see a lot more re-exploration of some of those ideas.
What have you learned about the difference between what LLMs can do and what humans can do, and like that place between where machines are better than humans and where humans are better than machines?
Yeah, this is like a place that's hotly debated because I am obviously pro using these tools. I use them every day. A bunch of my code is written with these tools. I literally work on a tool to help other people do this. At the same time, a lot of my a lot of people that are in this space don't like or don't agree with how I use them, because I'm not pushing towards this world where you give it a task and you expect it to take an hour and it'll come back with like the perfect result for this large task. I think most of the industry is pushing towards that. Like, how much longer can we get these things to run before they come back to you? And I think what's happening is they are mistaking a trade-off for a feature. The fact is these things are slow. LLMs are slow, like especially the mainstream ones, like ChatGPT, especially ChatGPT. GPT-5 is like crazy slow. Sonnet 4 is not as slow, but it's still slow relative to what's available out there. Given these things are slow, we are now building workflows for that. Like, oh, okay, they're going to take 5 minutes to like do its thing. They're going to take 20 minutes to do this thing. So the right way to use these things is to like parallelize a bunch of work. And that right way becomes, people start talking about that right way without the perspective of we're only doing that given these things are slow. If they were faster, if they were instant, we wouldn't be like building all these workflows around these things. Like, faster is always better. So my workflow tends to be I'll like kind of escalate up. So I will use fast LLMs. So we have a bunch of options in OpenCode for LLMs that are pretty quick. I will give them a task that I expect to be done sub 1 minute. Usually like much faster, like 10 seconds even. So when you have a fast feedback loop like that, you're like way more on the flow and you're way more interactive. So my job is guiding it to the right places to do its work and like reviewing very incrementally. Other people use it where like, well, I'm going to treat it like a whole person and have it go off and do something and come back to me. And I've tried to use it that way, but to me, in my opinion, it's not worth it. Like, most of the time when it does come back with the right result, a faster LLM would have done that too. When it comes back with the wrong result, it sucks, because now like I waited all this time for no reason. And then people argue, well, you shouldn't be waiting, you should be parallelizing 10 tasks in a row. But again, you would not have to do that with a fast LLM. So for me, I think right now it's very good when, in two cases, obvious cases, when you know what you want to do, you just need someone to do it. Of course, LLMs can do that well. Two, when you're building something new and you need it to take a first swing at it, because you don't want to you don't want to, but like, it's good to have an initial implementation to work off of to figure out what you're even trying to do. It's really great at that too. So I treat it like it's a part of my active work. It's not me kicking something off and now my brain is off and I'm just like a manager. I don't really use it that way. I think most industry is trying to push in that direction, which demands infinitely increasing levels of intelligence, which I don't think we're getting at all.
The hype. So you're working with a team to build this. You're also working with an extended community to do open source, and you're working with the machines to do a lot of the similar tasks that all of that would have been done either by the team you're working with or by the open source. But now you've got this extra layer. What kind of things are the people on your team working on? What beyond the type of thing that you mentioned about the open source, like on AWS, are you lending or using the whole general, like collaborating with the whole community? And then what are the things that machines do really well?
Yeah, so I think each one of us uses, like every single person on the team uses OpenCode to do their work. I think what's been interesting is we now have a designer on the team, and he's technical, like he can build stuff with code, but he's obviously not like a straight up programmer like the rest of us. What's been fun is setting a goal that David, his name is David. David should be able to make any changes to anything in our stuff on his own. He shouldn't have to do this thing where like, oh, he notices that there's like, because I mean, the thing with designers is they're great at details. Yeah. Engineers tend to miss a lot of these details. So when he notices that detail is missing, he shouldn't have to like bug one of us to fix it. He should just be able to go do it on his own. So given that our code base is like, it's not a 0 to 1 thing. Like there is an app already built. It's like, somewhat mature to some level. There's like standard patterns for a lot of different things. When he goes and tells it to fix something, it usually does it correctly because it's effectively a small tweak that looks similar to other stuff in the code base. So that's been, we're still very early in that, but he only joined us like a month ago. But I'm excited about the designer on our team just being able to like clean up and fix whatever he sees across our landing page, but also like our products, even like in our terminal app.
It's so crazy because 2 years ago, I would not have felt comfortable going into any of the startups that I work for and going and making changes on my own. Now, given how many times I've screwed up and how many times I've done things, I've learned the hard way of like how when things break and when things don't break and what to give to the machine, what not to give to the machine. And like I consider the large corporations and how different it must be to work inside of a large corporation, like right now with the
Yeah.
workflows and everything like that, compared to what you just described, and compared to probably what every other small team on the planet is now doing, which is just like trust and autonomy. Which is also funny because you just mentioned all the foundational labs are all moving towards very, very long periods of time. They want to send this thing off for 24 hours so it'll go cure cancer or whatever. Who knows whether it's the hype? Who knows whether it actually like does perform on those longer things? But the whole idea is give this thing autonomy. Like you said, maybe the whole idea of autonomy is mistaken. Maybe we're just totally mistaken about this thing, and that all these things will need to be on a tight leash for a long time until we get to those next gen algorithms, maybe neuromorphic computing or something like that. Any thoughts there on all that stuff I just said?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like a big swing, but if you miss, there is no
Interesting.
like fallback. So if you're just aiming for this like long horizon, I'm for I think long horizon task, whatever it is, and it turns out it's not that great, you can't really reuse that system that's optimized for that for other stuff, right? Like it's like that model is just a slow model. If it turns out that the right place to land is something that's a lot faster, a lot more interactive, like focus on fast feedback loops, all these like smaller models that aren't as smart, quote unquote smart, are kind of like the de facto winner in that case. So I think what I find confusing is, yes, GPT-5 is the most intelligent, but right now the definition of most intelligent is like it's 30% better on 5% of the hardest tasks. Which, yeah, okay, but like 99% of my work is not the 5% of the hardest tasks, right? So
Interesting.
I think my approach right now, like I said, it's like I try with my default model. If it can't do that, then I try with like a slow model like Codex. Rarely ever end up like maybe like 20% of the time it ends up doing it. Then I kick it off to myself, being okay, let me go dig into this manually and see if I can get it unstuck. So I'll tend to like escalate that way. And that's what's nice about OpenCode. It's you can just switch between models very quickly. It's not like I'm switching from Claude Code to Codex to whatever else. Yeah, so being able to like, switch what models you're using and just use the smarter ones when the cheaper ones or faster ones fail. That's kind of my approach.
So the reason I found out about OpenCode was my friend Lord Asado on Twitter. I love saying the name Lord Asado. He's not even Argentine, but he's Lord Asado. He introduced it to us when he was doing his generative art workshop for our AI Whisperers group down here in Buenos Aires. And so he's a longtime programmer. He learned programming from generative art. From doing generative art, he basically learned programs so they could do generative art, and that's a really interesting story. But he introduced us to OpenCode. I have not been using it as much because of something I think I just figured out, which is what it does is it enables programmers to be able to choose which model of many models. Whereas if you're in Claude Code, if you're in Codex, if you're in Gemini, you're not switching models. You're not dealing with a bunch of different minds. You're dealing with one mind that they've got, and they don't want you to use other ones. I wonder how much pressure you're going to put on those guys to do it, because it feels like that's the superior model for programmers. For me, it doesn't feel like it's the superior one because I have to use the top of the line model, because otherwise I'll get into a doom loop that I can't get out of. Like I can get out of it. There's ways to get out of it, but for me, it's just much easier to go and use the state of the art intelligence inside this environment. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think most users of OpenCode probably just do that as well. They probably just stick to one model. I think I'm obviously like my behavior is going to be a little bit different because I'm actively experimenting to see like where things are going. And I've found that these open source models are like if you're using Sonnet 4, Sonnet 4.5, there's quite a lot of open source models that are very competitive with it and are way faster and also cheaper. So I
Yeah,
don't know if
interesting.
I don't know if they're different enough where everyone just drops on it and switch to them. But it is interesting that that gap is narrower than what people would imagine. Uh, and especially if you're like a large company spending crazy amounts of money, these other models can sometimes be like half or a third or a fourth the cost. Um, at some point, that'll be a decision that a larger company
Yeah,
will
interesting.
decide to make. Right now, it's probably fine. Everyone's like in, okay, I'm down to experiment. I'm like not too worried about price right now. Um, but as the market continues to compete and as the gaps get closed and like people are out of that experimental phase, I think people are going to like a lot of these cheaper models are going to end up becoming more popular.
So there's two questions I have based on that. There's like how the economics of it are working out to actually give that that
Mm-hmm.
the open source free models, a lot of them coming from China, and I would love to do sort of like a cataloging of all of those different models, like what are the best ones.
Yeah.
And the other sort of related feature is that it is taking so much sort of not only information just absorption to keep up with everything going on, but also action absorption to actually like go and switch to a new model requires like somebody
Yeah.
like me a significant amount of activation energy to go download a new thing, go get in it again. And so there's these two competing things where it's like I'm excited to do it. A lot of people have no interest whatsoever getting into this stuff.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts there about just every month there's a new thing? I suspect with Gemini 3 comes out, whenever that comes out, is just going to just destroy the other ones in terms of how good it's going to be inside the command line interface. Maybe I should make a bet on that on a prediction market. But um, so yeah, what do you think about this either of those two things?
I mean, yeah, I don't want to switch different products every month, which is
Yeah,
why, I mean, that's kind of part of why we built OpenCode. I can switch models and not, like, my experience literally
yeah,
does not
interesting.
change if something new comes out this month. But again, I understand, like, I still count that as like the power user part of the market. Like, most people aren't like trying to stay up to date with what's going on. But that's why we also have OpenCode Zen, which is like a single thing that you pay for, and you automatically get access to like the newest models and whatever we think is good. Um, yeah, at the end of the day, like I'm not telling anyone they need to switch what they're using. Like I think most people just pick something that works for them and they stay with it. Uh, but you know, we are still in the very early phases of these models and what they cost and which one's the best and all of that. So yeah, there's like, you know, first it was Claude Code, that was the best, and then everyone started switching to Codex, and then Claude Sonnet 4.5 came out, and they started switching back to Claude, and like you said, now Gemini is going to come out, and like switching, like each one of these CLIs are like half baked compared to the other one. Like there's some
Yeah,
good features in Claude
yeah.
Code that aren't in that, no, there's not going to be in Gemini CLI. Yeah, so that churn is annoying, and for that segment, I think OpenCode is very useful. Um, yeah.
So, so how is the business model of these? I mean, are they all
Yeah,
Chinese?
yeah.
Are there any
Let
other?
me
Yeah.
yeah, let me try to drill into that a little bit. So there's two sides to this, right? There's the cost to develop the model, and then there's the cost to serve the model. Serving the model is where you theoretically make your profit. The reason open source models are cheaper to serve is because anyone can serve them. So
Oh,
the competition is a lot more intense. So that's part of one of our bets. We are hoping that open source models continue to get better because there is like a
okay.
crazy amount of capital deployed to businesses that are trying to serve these, right? So if you look at, I think I can name like four off the top of my head that are like valued at over $1 billion already, right? So these companies have raised a ton of money to try to serve these things
What's the
as cheaply as
domain?
possible. Huh?
What's the domain or a few companies so I can go research that later?
It's like like inference
Inference. Okay.
providers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For open source
Inf-
models.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
like,
super
you know,
interesting.
to name a few off the top of my head, you know, you got like Fireworks is a big one, Deep Infra, Base 10, Grok, Cerebras. And there's like a super long tail of like
Got it.
just
Okay.
a crazy
Yeah.
amount of these. But anyone that has a capability to get a data center together and get GPUs together, they're
Whoa.
kind of getting into this business. So they're all going to compete with each other. They're all going to push the price down. The question is, what's missing here
Yeah.
is what about the company that developed the model? Like they put a bunch of money into doing this and releasing it open source. Like,
But that's
if they're not,
the Chinese. They're all, it's all the Chinese, which like
yeah. So
yeah.
I think that is going to change in the next year. Like, so what's been the case is big, frontier, closed source models has been like America's thing. Like America puts out between OpenAI and Anthropic, that's their thing.
Yeah.
There's not really big open source American efforts are all Chinese. So maybe their incentive is just to make it annoying for the American companies to like, they put these models out there. They kind of commodify, LLMs in general. Is it enough for them to just, disrupt these other companies? Is that like enough incentive? I think that's been the incentive so far. And of course, like within China, they tend to be the inference providers as well. So companies making these open source models tend to host it as well, and they tend to make money off of doing that within China. American companies, if it's a Chinese open source model, they're not going to use Chinese hosted inference for it. So American companies host it, right? So this could all work. This could all make sense, right? China tends to be open source because they want to make it annoying for the American companies. American inference providers benefit from that. Will this continue to be the case long term? I don't know. There are now some serious open source efforts from American companies that are happening as well. So we'll see kind of how all this plays out.
Were you talking about so Anthropic definitely doesn't have any. OpenAI has a few kind of open source things. Are there other things that I'm not aware of?
Yeah, so there's some of this information isn't like public, so I don't want to name anything specific, but there's like the equivalent of the Chinese labs popping up in the US as well. The Chinese labs, by the way, are all just funded by big tech in China. So like, even if they like seem like independent, their funding source might come from Alibaba or Tencent or one of these companies. So ultimately, these big tech companies, equivalent of Google in China, right now is footing the bill for developing these models.
I've been trying to do a bunch of deep dives to understand what is going on in China. Why did they do it with the open source? What is the thinking behind it? I've done a few deep dives for our AI Whisperer Club, and basically there is this sometimes I get confused, and sometimes it feels like China is the original promise of the open internet that I grew up with in the 90s. And that the U.S. is now like not doing that anymore, even though we invented it and we have things like Linux and but there's the national security implications of open source, and I think the U.S. did a really good job of essentially protecting its national security by using open source. Then all the big tech companies figured out, like Microsoft used open source to its advantage. So there's a whole bunch of things going into it, and in China, from my research, it feels like they are doing a lot what you just said. They're basically allowing for because they've got a bunch of factories. They want to get these things into the factories. So actually have applied artificial intelligence, open sourced, allow anybody in China to use it so they can get it into their factories and remain dominant in the supply chains. Then I went and looked. They're now at the 7 nanometer semiconductor chip. So they've managed to get to 7 nanometers. It's not close to the 3 nanometers that Taiwan can do at TSMC, but it's at 7 nanometers. So they're getting there. And they've actually open sourced all of that specification as well. The one thing that they're not open sourcing are process knowledge. So how to build things inside the factories. And also they are not servo motors. There's various the robots that build the robots. They're also not open sourcing that, because if they maintain that control over that, then they become the place where all the robots get built. If you have anything to share about that.
So I mean, if you look at that split, there's actually a very clear explanation for both sides of it. There are industries in which they are leading, and there are industries in which they're behind. You can see that they tend to open source the stuff in the industries in which they're behind. And the reason for this is if you're behind, you have to open source, because why would anyone pay attention to you, right? A closed source model from China, even if it's good, is never going to compare. The world is not going to pay attention to it compared to Anthropic. Anthropic and OpenAI are already there. Also, just kind of given all the security questions around something that's closed source and in China, their only option is to open source. I think that's also true of companies like Meta, right? Like Meta is so far behind on the AI stuff. And if they ever figure out their shit, it's going to have to be open source, because like yet another model at this
Yeah,
point,
interesting.
compared to everything that's out there. When you're behind, your only angle is to do the open source thing to get any amount of traction.
Okay, that's a really good point this is what I learned with ChatGPT 3.5 is that 3.5 was released not so that people could get access to intelligence. It was released so that OpenAI could train its model better on RLHF, reinforcement learning through human feedback. That was the reason for the chatbot, was like you get it out there so that people can train it. And what you just said tied that together basically, because if you're a closed source with a great brand, you can release a new product and immediately people will come and train on
Yeah.
it. If you're not at that level, and this is interesting because Grok, GROK, not GROC or Q, which you talked about earlier,
Yeah.
with Grok, they've managed to somehow kind of stay there, but then it go away and then it come back, and it's like sometimes it's good, sometimes bad, but like
Yeah.
and they have a huge data set, and like they have their own Reddit inside of Twitter, which is really interesting as well. So, any thoughts there?
Yeah, from a like a B2C perspective, OpenAI has already won. Like
Yeah,
even
interesting. Yeah, interesting.
like everyone thinks AI is ChatGPT. You know, whether they have like a billion weekly active users, it's like ridiculous how far ahead they are from everyone else in terms of the consumer side, and that's like an impossible advantage for anyone to really compete with. I think everyone is basically at this point, yeah, everyone has their consumer products, but they know they're not going to
No way to
surpass
get mind
ChatGPT
share.
at this point. Yeah. So even if the ChatGPT can mess up everything, by the way, they can make their product shitty. They can do their LLM could get worse. They could have annoying pricing. It really doesn't matter. Like when you reach this level of like default status where the average person, when they think AI, they think ChatGPT. It's like they can just fuck everything up and still win. So now everyone's kind of searching for what else is there, and which is why you see like now a bigger focus on coding. Like Anthropic has for a while has been really focused on building like coding products, not just LLMs, because the kind of ChatGPT pushes them into looking at more specific use cases like that.
The thinking man's somebody talked about Claude as the thinking. They're trying to brand themselves as the thinking man's LLM.
Yeah.
Which is definitely true. Like I definitely, when I need hardcore thinking, I don't go to the emoji laden chat output from ChatGPT. So, but then there's Google. There's Google in the background. Like Google is definitely like not out. Like is definitely in. They have trillions of dollars. Who knows how much money they actually have? I should go research that. But they got a lot of money. They got a lot of TPUs. Do TPUs even matter anymore? But they got a lot of compute.
I think it's still a big advantage. I think there's two like kind of dynamics happening. So on one side, like the ChatGPT consumer hold is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The other side of it is people underestimate incumbents. And I have a bunch of posts about this where incumbents move so slow. Like you will literally look at a space and you'll be like, wow, the dust has settled, somebody's won. Then the incumbent will start moving. And you look back a couple years later and it's like, oh shit, the incumbent actually took over everything.
Yeah.
And this has happened the thing I point to is Slack and Microsoft Teams. Like think about like Slack is like the thing that everyone in tech is aware of and uses. Every company you think of has a Slack subscription. You can do a Slack Connect with pretty much everyone. And you're like, oh, Slack won. They like even IPO'd and they got like and eventually they got acquired. You look at the numbers, Microsoft Teams is much bigger than Slack. It's a worse product.
Yeah.
They shipped it way later, but it didn't matter because incumbents also have some crazy advantages. So yeah, I think Google is like, ultimately they will always have a huge amount of traffic to Google search. It's kind of similar. It doesn't matter how much they fucked up in AI. It doesn't matter how slow they were to it.
Yeah.
They still have plenty of opportunity to be a big winner. And I think we'll see what happens, but it's likely they still kind of will ultimately end up winning. And by the way, Microsoft also, they're like, if you really look at who's winning, it's really the big tech companies Amazon basically has Anthropic. Amazon can sell Anthropic models. They're a big owner in Anthropic. I think Google can sell Anthropic models as well. In addition to their own models, Microsoft has OpenAI. All the businesses that are using Azure, Microsoft, Azure Cloud are buying their LLMs through Microsoft. And then, whatever's left over is for OpenAI and Anthropic to tap into directly. So Yeah, big companies always win. It's really hard to disrupt them.
Well, and this offends my sensibilities coming from the cypherpunk 1980s, 1990s Silicon Valley. Like the idea that this is the state of the world as we're going into AI sort of offends my sensibilities and my approach to truth and all the things that happened during the pandemic with the big tech companies. And so and so open source is so interesting for me because that feels like where the juice is. That feels where even though everything you just said is accurate, and I believe all of those things, I still have this hopium that in 5 to 20 years, open source is going to be the way that this is done. Because let me share this half-baked line that I try to get out sometimes, which is so it's software. These LLMs are software, and as they're software, they're kind of software. But they're once the model is trained, as you said with the open source, you can go and do inference on it, and people can make money on the inference. And somebody can copy it and then move it somewhere else and distribute it 1,000,000 times. Due to that, how does this remain a centralized thing under big tech companies? Like, how does it not rapidly decentralize to like small teams of people who generate huge amounts of value? Like looking at Facebook is a great example. Facebook is just mired in bureaucracy. Like they can't do anything because they have these structures in place. Yeah, they do move slowly, but at some point that moving slowly is going to harm people given how fast teams like your teams can move, right? Like what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, there's just certain types of businesses, and inference is a capital expensive business, which means the bigger you are, the cheaper you can offer inference. The cheaper you offer inference, the more customers you get, which makes you more money, which gives you more ability to expand, which it's like a crazy loop. It's a reason that, AWS is $100 billion year revenue, something like that. They're going to keep growing. It does not matter how shitty their product is. The fact is they can do build outs cheaper than everyone else. They literally laid special fiber between their data centers to shave latency. These are just not things that small companies can do. It's just like the rich get richer, like winners win harder. It's kind of that dynamic for certain businesses. Anything that's like capital intensive, anything that's scale oriented. I think the way I look at it is this world is actually better than the worst case scenario. And the example I use is something like email, right? Email is an open protocol. It's anyone can set up an email server. You're not forced to use any email provider. If you're on one email provider, you can still email other providers. So open protocol, right? But at the end of the day, some large percent of the market is choosing to use Gmail. Most people have Gmail accounts or whatever. So it is like centralized on top of this decentralized thing. To me, this is okay because for the segment of the market that does not want to use Gmail, that does not want to use whatever, they can still make their own choices without getting locked out of like the email ecosystem, right? If you think about something like iMessage, not the case. If you don't want to use Apple, if you don't want to use iOS, it's not built on open protocol. You are now like getting a worse experience trying to message these people. And this is improving. Like some of these things are becoming a little bit more open. So to me, centralization is kind of always going to be a thing that happens because scale is efficient and the biggest player is going to keep getting bigger to the point where it starts to look like they are centralized. But as long as it's built on something that's open source, it still allows for, I would argue, the best of both worlds. Like if you're someone that doesn't care, go use Gmail, don't have to think about it. If you're a lot more sensitive to privacy, if you're a lot more sensitive to XYZ things, you have options. This doesn't exactly map onto what we're talking about with models and inference, but I think it's okay if the biggest inference providers are Microsoft, Amazon, Google, if they are serving open source models, right? That's like a decent outcome because if you don't want to house your data with them, if you don't want to use these providers, there's going to be other providers that give you the exact same experience that are maybe like, that fit your needs better. You're not like forced to use one of the major players. So for me, centralization is all about if I have no choice.
Yeah.
If I have choice, it's like an okay outcome.
Yeah, if there's no choice, that's where centralization, that's like the tyranny and sort of the that's where like the totalitarian governments come in. It's like it's the fact that there's no choice, there's no ability to leave,
Yeah, so they can do
and
whatever you want,
yeah,
they want.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
that
to be fair, like as big as they are, they do kind of get some of that power to like make it really hard for you to leave, even when things are
yeah,
open.
yeah,
But I think the knobs that they have there are a little bit more fair. It's usually because a lot of times because their product is really good. You can't leave because nobody
Mhm.
can give you as good of a product somewhere else. And I think that's annoying sometimes because then they can force you into other things you don't like. But then the day it's because the product is good, which is I think okay.
Well, this is the craziest thing now because now I've now been building products. I've built 12 products for myself that solve specific needs that I have, and it's lovely. And I'm getting into the point where I can deploy things and I can share it with
Mhm.
other people. And like, so I can build internal tools for my company. And this is a really crazy point for me because now when I see that a product is not great, I can recreate it. I'm
Mhm.
definitely not going and recreating, Gmail, but maybe I could. I'm now we're using Riverside right now. They've got this great magic clip thing where they make a bunch of clips afterwards. This morning I figured out how to actually go and do that automated programmatically, do it on my own, like
Mhm.
no need to do all those things. Like that is crazy. That because that feels like the moat they have is these software. I mean, not Google, not the big tech companies. Definitely feels like the SaaS. A lot of the SaaS businesses are
Mhm.
in for a run for their money. Like I'm never using DocuSign again. That's a really bad piece of software there. But yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I'm all in favor. So I think for me, if you are, a lot of people say like, oh yeah, I believe in capitalism. If you really believe in it, you should be pro destruction because that's kind of what
Mm. Capitalism.
things don't. Capitalism gets bad when things don't die. So if there is a major shift that's going to shake up some of these entrenched companies, that's exactly what we need for like the system to keep working. Otherwise, the entrenched companies just start to do shitty things, and no one has any choice
Yeah.
because they're entrenched. And then now you have to bring in like all kinds of other questions around like policy around these things. But if you have a healthy ecosystem of things living and like growing and then dying out and something else replacing it, and there's a
Yeah.
really healthy ecosystem of that, that's when I think it's best for everyone. So any technology that allows or like enables that, I think is good. Yeah, like I don't think we're going to disrupt Microsoft or any of these giant companies with this.
Unless they start to make really bad decisions, which they don't. They've got really good decision making capabilities.
They're able to make like the least worst decision that doesn't kill them. You know,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
will like thread
Interesting.
that
Yeah.
needle perfectly. I mean, I'm totally in favor of these big companies getting disrupted and like creating things that allow for that. But just being realistic, I don't think. I think AI is one of those cases where the winners keep winning type of thing. But maybe for like the latter segment of the market, yeah, there are a lot of products that are brought into question,
Yeah.
like is this even necessary anymore, or like how can we rethink this, or there's so many spaces where you just wouldn't even enter before because you could only do
Yeah.
like a 10% better job than the existing product. It's not worth spending 10 years to do a 10% better job. But now maybe with some of this there's like an opportunity to do a 10x better job, which is totally worth it.
So we got about 10 more minutes left, and I want to talk about, I mean, I'd love to keep on going on open source, but we might come back to that in the 10 minutes. But I've now been getting really excited about building hardware. And so I don't think I can technically call this building hardware, but I got my first Raspberry Pi here
Nice.
set up, and I had OpenAI or I had ChatGPT tell me how to get it set up and get it working and all those different things that would have just driven me totally nuts like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So like that's there. I got my GPIO thing, so I can start building robotics. I can attach a microphone to it. I can do all these things, and that is getting me very excited because the thing that very few people talk about is the fact that an LLM is a great private tutor. Most people don't
Yep.
want
Yep. Yep.
that. Most people aren't teaching themselves things, except programmers. Programmers love teaching themselves things, but like it's a giant thing, and like it's not just in software, it also knows how to fix my refrigerator or all these
Yep.
different mechanical things. Like,
Yep.
so what are you thinking about this moving into the hardware world, moving into the robotics world, particularly in the open source kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about this a lot where I'm like, it's crazy how bad companies like OpenAI and Anthropic are at PR because they've built something that is really magical. Like every person you've ever that's used these things probably
Yeah.
has some like incredible story involving this product.
Yeah.
Like imagine
Yeah.
making something that good and then like the sentiment around AI is so negative. That's like a fuck up on these companies' parts. Because yeah, like in the past 2 or 3 years, I've learned so much. Like there's so many things that I've like my like rate of learning has been outrageous. There's things I wouldn't even attempt it. Like even if you look at all the terminal stuff we're doing, uh, the terminal is not well documented. It's like not there's not like a
Interesting.
place you can go to like learn how terminals work and like I mean
Whoa.
I'm sure there is, but it's
Yeah.
not like the same level as like the rest of the industry. And like figuring out how all that stuff worked, I would not have attempted any of this pre LLM. LLM let me like learn that stuff,
Yeah.
let me get super deep into this like obscure world and like debug and walk me through this. As a company, we wouldn't have taken a bunch of swings that we took. And this is incredible for us to be able to do. Like, so forget like using them for programming, whatever, like however you feel about that. I don't know how you can be net pessimistic about this stuff because any piece of knowledge you want, I mean, it's just like Google. When Google came out, like think about how much knowledge we all know from like Google searches we've done.
Yeah.
This is like a next level of that where you can like I said, it's a private tutor. You can get stuck in the unique way you get stuck, and then it'll figure out how to get you unstuck. So yeah, I've seen a bunch of people get more into hardware.
Are you doing any
of
of it?
that?
I imagine you're pretty busy.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's like I've done a bunch of hardware stuff before.
Oh, okay.
I worked at a company that did ship a hardware product. I've learned that my personality is not suited to hardware. And I think a part of this is because I've done so much programming. The crazy thing about programming is you get infinite tries. It costs nothing. You like do something and make a mistake, you just delete it and try it again. With hardware, you make a mistake. Oh, now you got to wait for Amazon to deliver the part that you broke, or like you order the wrong thing. And like the feedback loop is way more brutal. It's not like a criticism. It's just like a reality of what hardware is. So I think you need like a level of patience with it that is kind of unfamiliar to me. Yeah. So I've done a bunch of things, and there's some stuff that like I have in my house that I've built, but yeah, ultimately I don't think it's a right fit for me. But like I said, I've seen a lot of people get more into it, and it's obviously satisfying because doing something physical is a lot more satisfying than making something show up on a screen.
Yeah, this is the crazy thing because we do these demos where I show people 3JS, and to me, 3JS is totally mind blowing that you can do all these things in the browser. But when I show people, they're just like, it's either they're too surprised to really make a reaction, or they just don't. It's like, oh, that's cool. It's just another internet thing. It's just another thing on the screen. And like the screen isn't, but if I were to do that same thing inside of the physical space or like art or something like that, which may be possible soon. I mean, either with holographs or with like robots or all these different things, but we're probably far away from that, 5 to 10 years away. So I want to go more into that terminal thing, because that thing you said about the terminal last few minutes, like there's nowhere to go to learn about the terminal. What are the craziest things that you've learned from programming on the terminal? Like what does a terminal, what have you learned about the terminal since starting OpenCode?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask the average person, like, what is your terminal? Like, what is it? Like, people can't, like, it's hard. Like, we all know how to use it, and I used it for 10 years before even looking into how it worked. Like, you can SSH into another machine in a terminal, but then it still like just works as a terminal. Like, how is this all working under the hood?
Very meta.
Yeah, so it's like it's a thing that works really well. You know, it's actually a great example of good technology because most people don't ever have to question how it works because it just kind of works. It's very old technology. It's been like very battle tested, so it's invisible for most people. But at the end of the day, the terminal is just something that can output text. So to do anything, you have to output text. To like print text a different color, that's just prefixing your text with like another character. To clear a line in your terminal, that's a special character that you print out. And that's why it works over SSH, because your remote connection is just streaming text back to your local terminal, which is rendering it the same way it would as though if it was locally. And through this, as limited as it sounds, you can use this to pick up mouse events, to pick up click events, to pick up people pressing like Control D or like, you know, different key combinations. You can use it to clear certain parts of the screen. You can use it to like draw at different parts of the screen. So ultimately, like what's crazy is at the end of the day, the terminal is just like a canvas, the same way that, you know, you have a canvas on web. It's just a
Yeah, interesting.
like a thing you can paint pixels to, and it's like very manual. You have to like move where you want to paint the pixels to, and you like, you know, turn them on, then you switch color, then you draw more pixels. Except in this case, pixels are characters, like they always have to be, you know, a single character.
Oh, interesting.
And using that, you can build all kinds of interesting things. Like the person that built our TUI framework for all the terminal stuff that we're building now, he built a 3JS 2 terminal system. So he can render any 3JS scene inside the terminal natively, and it runs. Huh?
What's his name?
The project is OpenTUI, OpenTUI.
Okay.
And here, his Twitter handle is Commander FX, KMDRFX. So if you go and like go to his media tab, he's got some like pretty crazy in the terminal demos that
very cool.
Like I'll like link one in the chat here. You can take a look at, but video chat paste. Yeah, ultimately it's just a canvas you can paint to. It's like a low resolution canvas because it's, you know, it's X characters of text by Y characters of text. But given that, you can paint anything you want: 3D scenes, 2D scenes, UI, whatever it is. And this is all operating over text, which means you can stream it from a remote server. It's like pretty elegant in a lot of ways, but there's no like course on becoming a terminal developer.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it's like not a thing that exists.
It's like because everybody's forgotten about it because the GUI existed, and the only people who know about it are autists who are learning about the history of the PC industry. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. How can people find out more about you and your business?
Yeah, so I mean, everything I do is on Twitter, or on X. Still figuring out the name. Username is THGXR. That's where I post everything that I'm doing.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Give me